Our keynote speaker for the day today is Mr. Somnath Menon. Now, Mr. Somnath Menon is the Chief Operating Officer of the Al Bank of Kuwait. He is a career banker with experience across different products and multiple geographies. He started his career with a public sector bank as a management trainee and then joined Citibank, where he worked for around 20 years in India, Nigeria, Poland, besides United Kingdom. He has worked in various senior management roles in Citigroup out of London and has been responsible for outsourcing and setting up global centers of excellence in different countries. He joined Mashreq Bank UAE as Group Head of Operations and Technology in 2006. During his time, the bank undertook several transformational changes, including third-party outsourcing, both technology and BPO, implementation of new core banking system across countries and other best-in-class and innovative technologies. He joined ABK Kuwait in 2015 as Group COO with responsibilities for operations and technology. Under his leadership, ABK successfully completed a core banking system implementation in record time and embarked on a digital transformation journey covering automation, artificial intelligence, blockchain, big data, cloud, and cybersecurity, which encompasses all of the emerging technology. Somnath is on the client advisory board for Finacle and AssistEdge. He also holds a master's degree in change management from UK and AMP from Oxford University, UK. I would like you all to welcome Mr. Somnath Menon. Mr. Somnath Menon, good afternoon, and we're just going to get into a conversation with him right now.
Good afternoon, Abhinav. Thank you for that introduction.
Thank you so much. Mr. Somnath Menon, we thought that this time, let's do something different. Instead of just having a presentation, why don't we look at maybe a conversation with a keynote speaker? Because we feel, especially when it's digitally, and considering the fact that the medium is so distractive, why not have an engaging conversation with one of the banking leaders that we all have heard about, but now we're going to get to know about what goes on in his mind, especially when it comes to technology. So first of all, how are you doing? I hope everyone is safe in your family. How's the situation over there? I hope everything, your colleagues, everyone are fine.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, well, my family is safe. Things could be safer. One expects people to stay safe, and hopefully that will be the trend. But yes, this the pandemic is not over. I keep reminding everybody, we are back to office, but it doesn't mean that it's over. Social distance, wear masks, wash your hands, all of that.
Absolutely, absolutely. Mr. Menon, we would like to first start off with I think one of the questions that has been, I think we all kind of talk about it. And I think this would be the best platform to start with that question. In general, we've seen GCC countries, Middle East, having the best of resources available from across the world. But however, when it comes to the rate of adoption, when it comes to technology, the countries are a bit slow. Now, why do you think, as someone who's handled the technology mandate from the top, why do you think that is the case?
Great. Good question to start with. And let me tell you, let me split this into two. Let's talk about customers and banks, okay, in terms of adoption. So customers, there are customers, in Kuwait, we have, I think the population, which is below the age of 20 is around 43%. Mobile penetration is about 88%. In UAE and Saudi, I think it is closer to 100%. Kuwait is 29th in the world ranking for gaming culture. So it shows that when it comes to individuals, there is a very tech savvy and tech hungry set of people. And therefore, they are willing to adopt, they're willing to happy to look at new technology innovations in banking. On the other side, we have the corporate bank. And the corporate bank is mainly locals or family-owned businesses, very large, but they are run by family-owned or local businesses. Now, that is, even if you give them the state-of-art online banking, it's a huge cultural shift to move on to online banking because it means that one, they have to focus on something which is not manufacturing, which is not going to get them money, but it's something the financing or accounting department, why go and do that? Secondly, we should remember the low cost resources which is available to these people. So if, say, in the UK or the US, you want to go and drop off a letter in a bank, somebody has to leave his job, go there, do that additionally. In this part, we have messengers, the famous mandubs, and their job is just to do that. So when they're available, why not utilize them? So this is, I think, one of the challenges, and I believe, where we talk to the owners and talk to the senior management, they're all willing to take on the new technology. But when it comes to actually getting the people who are doing this to execute, there are huge hassles. So it's an education process. It'll work, but it's a slower process. Uh, so the banks also now understand that there's a dichotomy. There are two sets of customers. You have to manage both ends of the scale. So what do they do? They try to manage both. Now, traditional banks will stick to the manual processes because, again, for them, low-cost resources, it doesn't matter. Okay, so I can do manual. Why go into huge expenses if I can avoid it? And especially if my customer is not asking for it, then why push it into the customer, right? Whereas the forward-looking banks, the visionary banks, the ones which are also the ones who are in the more in the retail business, they understand that if they don't move quickly and adopt the new technologies, they will lose out in the very short run, not even the long run. So they are the ones who are moving forward. And I'm sure all of us on the call know which banks do what. Okay, some banks are way ahead of this. Some banks are saying, okay, we will wait and watch. So it is a mixed bag.
Absolutely. And as you said that this is a mixed bag, but Mr. Menon, as someone who's leading an organization, now I would like to come from the adoption to what would you suggest to leaders? Because I think one of the key issues that we've seen technology leaders face when it comes to technology investments or investing in technology is getting their stakeholders on board together or to align with what they have in terms of the vision. So what would you suggest to technology leaders who face issues getting the stakeholders to back them on their technology investments?
So when you go into an investment, the nightmare question every CEO and CIO gets asked is, what is the ROI? Okay, and that is a tough one when you're trying to do some kind of a transformation or change your core banking system. What is the ROI? If you ask me, it's just one single word: survival. You want to survive, you can't be sitting on legacy systems, right? But that may not probably be very easy if you just say it in one word. So you got to kind of break it down. So stakeholders understand money for sure, but they also understand risks, not just business risks. They understand the impact of risk on reputation, on losing losing market share. They understand risk when it comes to regulations. So they understand a whole host of other risks. So this is one area you focus on saying, if this does not happen, these are the risks. Okay, if I'm sitting on a legacy system which is 25 years old and you want me to keep doing things, there is these risks. So you articulate the risk very clearly. Second thing, which I always insist, and I think when we are in technology or operations, we are not very good at it, is we don't dollarize. The minute you dollarize, you monetize everything and say, this is a risk. And by the way, this risk means that this is the impact on your revenue. Suddenly you got the attention. So if I were to just say it's downtime of 2 hours per day, means nothing. But if I were to go around and say this 2 hours actually means, okay, that you're losing X amount of revenue, you have the attention, right? So I'll give you another example. So we were doing one of the conversions which we did was a system which was on COBOL. Now COBOL is 60 years plus. Programming language, for those who are too young and don't know about it, it is a programming language. Okay, but the thing with that is you can't find programmers. Now, interestingly, I read just the other day that 92 of the top 100 banks still have applications which run on COBOL. Okay, so where I succeeded was by telling them, listen, we do not have programmers. This is one day going to die, and we will all have to sit and go back to manual work if we don't do this. But the good news for the youngsters out there is learn programming. Okay, learn COBOL programming. Your job is secure because there are not too many programmers out there. But this is definitely the way forward, that you try to make the business or the stakeholders understand what exactly it means in terms of risk and in terms of the monetary loss. The other thing which I believe, and through experience I have kind of acquired, is that there are three cardinal rules when you come to any large transformation project, whether it is core banking or you're going into a new digital strategy, three cardinal rules you need, especially in a core banking kind of project. First one, the ownership. A core banking project, for example, is seen as a technology project. The minute that's the case, it's a flop. It's going to fail. Why? And as they say, 70% of the large projects fail, okay, because there's time and cost overruns. And this is because the ownership is not with the stakeholders. The ownership needs to be with the stakeholders or the CEO. The CIO or the technology head is there to execute. He's the executor. He runs it, but he's not the owner. Okay, that brings in a whole lot of buy-in from everybody else, and that makes it a bank project, a bank-wide project, not a technology project. Second one, and I'm sure every one of you who has tried to do a large project will understand, is customization. Okay, if you cannot completely eliminate it, more power to you if you can, at least limit it. Now, what happens? Why does customization become such a big problem? When you bring a new system, nobody wants it. So then suddenly they look at it and say, oh, by the way, all those old things in the old system, I want that too, okay? So why do you bring this? No, no, I need that, right? I need it. It is to come from the left side. It's coming from the right side. I'm not comfortable. I need it to come on the left side, okay? So that's one customization. Two, they want everything new should stay as is, okay? And then as they get into the testing it and understanding the system, they start getting imagination, okay, what I call hallucination. Can you bring this in? Can you bring that? And then if there is no strong guideline saying no customization or limit customization, the business requirements just keep growing, and you cannot have a project running with more and more customization. Okay, so one way again I found effective is to say yes. People say customization is a one-time cost. Till I start impressing on people, it's not a one-time cost. You see, what happens is every time you upgrade the system, you need to retrofit the customization, and this is another cost for you. Okay, so again, it's about speaking the language of stakeholders and the business in a way that they understand. And the third thing is communication. Large projects, we start off the project, there's a little bit of bang, bang, and then everybody goes and does the stuff in the corner. The project team is somewhere, and once in a way, they give updates. What should be done is absolutely complete communication all the time, whether it's stakeholders, business, your project teams, and the most neglected, the vendors. Okay, in a project, I consider vendors as my partners. Okay, and so if you do not communicate with them, you will always hear it's the vendor's fault, it's the partner's fault. Okay, it isn't, because if you do these fair communication and have meetings with them often enough, we used to do it monthly, you find that, okay, this is something which actually you're to blame. Okay, now the poor man has not been able to say that, but if you give him an environment where you can see that interest is common for everybody, he will also tell you. And then what happens? Suddenly the whole thing is solved because you have senior people in the room, solutions are found, agreed, and you move forward. So communication is key. So the three cardinal rules is ownership. It's not owned by technology. It is customization, eliminate or at least limit. And the third one is communicate.
So I think very well put. I mean, the 3 points: ownership, customization, and the communication part. But coming to the next question, Mr. Menon, is you told us about how technology is seen, or resources or adoption of technology is lower in the region, and what can we do. You also mentioned about technology leaders and how they should align with the stakeholders to make sure that their technology mandate or their technology agenda keeps moving forward. Now, also, as someone who's leading the organization, we've seen a strategic shift in how banks operate in the last 5 years. I don't think so the banks of today are anything of what they were 5 years back. Now, based on that, how do you feel that the role of COOs has changed, and how do you think it will evolve in the next 5 years? Although technology definitely is your mandate as of now as well, but do you think that will have the most prominent role for CEOs in the in the years coming in the future as well?
Yes, absolutely. Okay, let me give you 3 points which I kind of think are relevant. Firstly, technology is no more an enabler. Technology is a driver, and I think all of us have to recognize that and believe that, because technology is not. Earlier, somebody came and told you, hey, let's do mobile banking. And retail guys say, okay, this is what changes I want. You did that. It's not that anymore. Today, if you want to see the role of the COO, he is part of the bank strategy, because a large part of the bank strategy is digital strategy. So when you want to do a digital strategy, he needs to be involved, and he is probably, he and the CIO, the people who know what technologies are out there. So as an example, if you want to do digital banking, you go and say, okay, I want to do digital banking. Now, what are the options? Do I just, change my mobile banking and call it digital banking? Do I have a separate entity and call it digital banking? Or do I white label some other application and put it on top and then say it is digital banking? Lots of options, but not something which business can think and manage alone. So today, the COO is now part of the strategy, and this is only going to become more and more as we go forward. So this is, I think, a very big role change for the COO. Now, if you asked me this question a year ago, probably I wouldn't have the second part of the answer, which is that the COO is responsible for uh, right skilling his people. Okay, as you can see, uh, technology is changing, right? So there is always the fear: will my job go away? And there are two very strong schools of thought. Okay, which is, I think, out there. There's the Musk thought and the Ma thought, right? John Ma and Elon Musk both have different thoughts, but I believe that technology doesn't take jobs away. You need to reskill, and the responsibility for the COO is to make sure that these things, the people get the right skills. So as an example, okay, let's take artificial intelligence. Right? It's an algorithm written by humans. Okay, humans have biases. Humans make errors. Humans have emotions. But once you put the code into the machine and it becomes AI, it doesn't have any human element. So whatever is coded, okay, if it is defective, you can expect defective results. Now you can say, yes, of course, AI is self-learning and it's machine learning and it'll self-correct, probably, but I don't see it happening very soon. Okay, maybe that's going to happen one day, because you never say never in technology, but it's far away. So you need to right skill your people, upskill them, and train them into being able to test, verify, identify, detect if there are, and make sure that what you are putting in the AI is honest. So this is about right skilling them. The third one, and I have sat in many forums and said this in the past, and I think now it's definitely come to the forum, to the front, is that back is the real front. So what do I mean by that? I always believe that in banking, it is the operations and technology which ran banks, because we do not have widgets, we do not have products, we have services, and a bank is as good as its services. Okay, you make a lot of errors, you kind of have horrible technology, customer has choices, he goes somewhere else, right? So I always believe back is the real front. Now, from a CEO role, he's more visible. Okay, he is one of the most relevant people when it comes to thinking of the future of the bank. So I think I've been saying it. I will now say it very proudly. Okay, no offense to anyone, but I think bank is really the real front.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. And Mr. Menon, also now that we spoke about the evolution of the role of a CEO, but um, taking a cue from that question, now what are the technology changes that are now driving digital strategies in the banking industry, and what are the challenges in adopting these technologies, according to you?
Right. So the financial industry is under heavy stress. I mean, I don't know much about insurance, but I know insurance is also one of them where they're under heavy stress. Why? Because there is a lot of people who are now encroaching on and having the bankers' lunch, as it were, okay, on territories which are only bankers' domain. So you have fintechs, you have regtechs, you have challenger banks, you have large technology companies, you have telecom companies, you have retailers. Everybody is taking a piece of the action which was a domain which was purely with the banks, right? And this is because there are a number of new technologies out there, and everybody can have access to the technology. So what are these new technologies? And it's a moniker for me for kind of understanding easily. I call it A square, B square, C square, right? By A square, I mean, let's do the first A, is automation. So Any process which can be, which is rule-based, which is repetitive, which is regimented, can be done by a robot, right? So that's automation. Artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence is today, of course, very commonly seen in banks as chatbots, but it's beyond chatbots. You can do predictive analysis, you can do reconciliations, you can do KYC. There's a whole slew of, and artificial intelligence, I think, is still very nascent technology within banking. Okay, it's a huge way to go. But again, get onto the board, get on board and grow with it, is what I believe. B square. So the first B is blockchain. So of course the cryptocurrencies were the ones who made this, the distributed ledger very popular, and everybody knows it. But today it is coming to the banking space through payments, through trade finance, through KYC, and many other users. And I think blockchain today is being sold by different vendors. And just like in the old days, if you, in the early days of email, if you were on Yahoo and I was on Yahoo, we could talk to each other. But if you were on a different one, we couldn't talk. That changed, right? So my friends in the industry, in blockchain industry, tell me that, wait, what we're doing is not just creating independent blockchains, we are creating an internet of value. And I think that's going to make a huge change in banking. The second B is big data. Now, some time ago, somebody said data is the new oil. Okay, and when I Googled that, it was a mathematician, Clive Humby, who said that. And recently, again, the economist said that the new commodity is not oil anymore, it's data, which is very true. And as you know, banks has tons and tons and tons of data. Okay, the thing is, how do you mine this data, get them into useful mindsets using big data technology? This is a big challenge, but it's going to change the way we do banking. C squared, cloud. Everybody talks about cloud. Amro and Kevin, there is cloud for you. And I believe cloud is inevitable in banking. It has to happen. Okay, the way it's not just storage, not just infrastructure. It is the demand for 24/7 access from anywhere. It is the amount of software is going. Not going to be practical to go and put everything in a data center and keep growing data center. Probably it is going to have limitations. So one often stated reason for not going on the cloud is security. Oh, there is a lack of security. And I'm sure we speak to Nutanix and other people, they tell you security is probably the biggest thing they focus on, because if they can't afford a secure, can't offer a secure environment, they're not going to win business. So security is probably bigger for them than for us. But I think the real reason is, and where most regulators are reluctant to agree to putting data on the cloud, is geopolitical, right? So you have heard probably that most regulators will tell you, if you want to have the cloud in the country, no problem. Okay, we can work with you. You want to have it in another country, or you don't even know where your data is, okay, they're not so ready to do that. But as these are need-based industries, okay, it has to happen. Regulators will find ways to regulate it, and I'm sure sooner or later we will all be banking on the cloud. So that's cloud. And the next C is the cybersecurity. Now, cybersecurity is seen as a hygiene or infrastructure element. I believe in a digital strategy is key, because when you're looking at new technology, okay, remember there'll be new vulnerabilities. So you can't say, oh, my firewall, which is there, is good enough. No, you don't know. So you need to make sure that you keep working with the technology and the security hand in hand. Okay, so this is, I think, the main reason why this is going to make the change in the coming days, and all of us in banking will be involved in this in one way or the other. And just to answer your question, what are the challenges? Of course, cost is always a challenge, and therefore I try to tell people that you can't look at it with just one pair of lenses. You got to look at it multi-lens. Okay, and again, for my clarity of head, I think of it as 3 C's. So if it's customer centric, it does something for the customer, okay? Or if it is cost effective, it saves money for the bank, right? Or it is control enhancing. It enhances controls. It gives you better controls over the system, the process, okay? Then it is a technology worth looking at.
I absolutely love the fact, Mr. Menon, is that how you break down your answers into small bullet points and also these easy to remember terms like a square, b square, and c square.
Only way I can remember.
Absolutely. And also, one of the interesting key takeaways is that how generally we misunderstand technology as well. Like you mentioned, that a lot of banking leaders themselves feel that AI is all about chatbot, but no, it's not. There's much more beyond that. Similarly for cloud as well. Now, having said that, as we are talking about, modernizing the operations is one of your top mandates as a COO. How do you work with your CIO on the underlying technology and the business decisions for it? And I think it's a very important question, is because it kind of gives a glimpse to the technology leaders onto the mindset of their leadership, and how do they see things that they come up with. So how do you work with your CIO on the technology and the business decisions around it?
Again, I agree with you. Very, very important and very valid questions. Good question. So let me tell you how I see it. Technology and operations probably have had the closest link, and that's why you normally find a CEO runs both. Okay, it's traditionally that way, but the link is now much closer, right? Especially when we find ourselves at a crossroad where there's a lot of manual still happening, but there's also a lot of new technology out there. How do you get these two to come closer, right? And how do you, make life easier for both sides? Because technology also depends on operations, because they are the guys who actually test for them. And ultimately, if all technology fails, these are the guys who do the manual work. So there is a dependency both ways. Uh, One of the things which I think I'm going to give you a few examples. For example, digitization of paper. Okay, so the customer is still insisting on paper, but you don't have to insist on the paper yourself. Once you get it, put it, digitize it, image it, put it in a workflow system, and then you can process it anyway. You can process it in a central processing. You can process it in your outsourced, vendor or third party or captive. You can do a lot of stuff which you couldn't do with paper. So this is one big change, uh, or one of the areas where technology works with operations. The second one is, when we have invested in core banking systems of world-class core banking systems, the amount of STP, or straight through processing, which can be done these days is huge. Okay, and it is, again, the challenge is to make it happen. So the CIO will work with the operations heads to find out, okay, what are these things which can be sent through without your operations guys having to touch it. Okay, and again, it's all about putting the right controls and so growing the STP. The recent example we had, and this is an interesting one, is the new technologies. So we introduced RPA for salary processing. Now, unlike UAE, where you have a centralized system, the WPS, and everybody has to go through the WPS, in Kuwait, for example, you can send your salary to the bank. The customers can send their employee salaries to the bank through different medium, paper, CD, USB stick. So we decided that this is one area which, and it's a long process, and everybody wants the money, right? So it's a very high tense time when the salaries have to be paid. So we decided that, okay, let's try and RPA it. So again, the technology working with the operations, and today I'm very proud to say this, that a salary where we would say the max, or we will do it within 72 hours, is actually credited to the customer's employee's account in 5 minutes. Okay, that's the scale. So when you can do that, okay, you see, there's much more bonding between the operations and the technology. And this was actually the question which I would have said, I should have said, if you asked me last year, I would have no answer, is the one on COVID. COVID changed the whole prospect of working from home. Working from home was a special consideration only given to certain people under certain circumstances. No more. It has become a necessity, right? And therefore, we are now saying that, yes, we've all used to giving, you can outsource to a third party who's got a complete organization, but somebody sitting at home, okay, and working on a computer, trying to do all the banking transaction as if they were sitting in office, is a complete game changer. Okay? And there are challenges, right? But I believe it's here to stay. And why is it here to stay? It is here to stay simply because If the bank looks long term, there's a huge save on real estate. Okay, you don't need to have so many buildings to house the people. Uh, Commute, which in all our cities is one of the biggest problems, right? Commute becomes very easy. You don't have commute. You probably will contribute to to saving the planet by reducing the carbon footprint, right? So that's another thing. The challenges are there. I mean, yes, it means that there's huge dependency on the way your telecommunications work, your network. Okay, these are issues. You have to work on security, both process and uh, uh, cyber. Okay, but I think uh, I believe in the long term that even after the pandemic, that the new norm will have people working from home.
Absolutely, absolutely. And as we come towards the end of this fireside chat, Mr. Menon, I would just like to ask you, what would your message be to the technology leaders who are watching this today, and for the ones who are going to be reading and watching it later?
Well, I have two thoughts. Uh, and this is a statement I'll make. Technology can deliver anything. Okay, this I strongly believe, and I always have seen it happening. The problem is what I call lost in translation. So let me give you an example. So in a typical bank, you have the end customer, and then you have the technology team. In between, you have business units, right? So the end customer talks to the business unit, and the business unit comes and tells the technology guys, make a change, okay? And the change is normally one liner. Okay, that's called the change request, right? A one line change request gets you this kind of response. So if the customer says, or if the business says, postpone my customers loans by 3 months, okay, which we also happening during the COVID. Great, will do. Few days later, business comes and says, hey, by the way, you postponed the installments. What about the interest? Okay, you didn't postpone the interest. Okay, no problem. Postpone the interest. Okay, then a few months later, they come and say, you're hitting the interest in a lump sum? No, it's got to be hit pro rata. Okay, by now there is frustration because everybody is pulling their hair out. Okay, there's huge finger pointing, everybody blaming the other person, and a frustrated customer who keeps seeing all these debits and credits in his account and understands has no clue why it is there, right? So CIOs need to learn from fintechs. Fintechs talk directly to the customer. They're nimble, they adjust, they understand the customer's language, and then uh, install or do those applications which are absolutely relevant. Now, of course, I don't think CIOs are going to be in banking, at least talking to customers directly in the near future. But what I found effective is have business people or either in a team or you can relate to who can speak to business in the business language so that this one line CR becomes a full spec. And therefore, when you deliver it right the first time. The second message which I have is now that you are in the driver's seat, you need to also learn to take risks. Okay, as an enabler, you didn't have to, but now you are part of the strategy. You need to take risks. You know all the new technologies out there, but you probably are worried, what if it doesn't work out? And therefore, I believe that if you do this diligently, with good intention and with proper understanding as much as you can, and it fails, that's what I call a noble failure. Okay, a noble failure is acceptable. And just to end this conversation with you now on a note, which I actually read about this, and I really thought this was a good example of noble failure. Christopher Columbus, as you know, set out to find the route to India and Asia and China and all that. And he ended up discovering America, right? Now, if you look at his mission per se, it was a failure. But it was a noble failure because the end result was pretty good.
Absolutely, absolutely. And uh, I think apart from his discoveries, this is the only thing Christopher Columbus has ever been famous for. So I think, but that's definitely a brilliant example that you've given. Although we are at the end of time for your fireside chat, Mr. Menon, I would quickly like to take one question from Mr. Abhilash Sudarsana Gopal. He asks, and he says that I am from the same school of thought where they believe a bank as a technology company doing financial services. Now, should we limit the services only to financial? This is his question.
Sorry, could you repeat that?
Yeah, so he says that I'm from the same school of thought where they believe a bank is a technology company doing financial services. So he feels that a bank is a technology company giving financial services. Now he's saying that, so basically I think his question revolves around, should bank remain to be banks, or there should be a platform in the future for different services? Why should they limit their services only to financial, is his question? Or should they limit their services to only financials?
Okay, if I understand the question rightly, okay, I mean, I work through environments where, for example, Citibank, I mean, today what you see as FlexCube, the system, okay, started as a Citibank house system, right? But what you discover over a period of time is that we are bankers, we're not technologists. So we understand banking and we then try to bring in technology. Yes, it soon becomes too big to handle both, right? Even in some of the other organizations I work, we try to have a separate technology unit which was servicing customers. But we soon started making huge losses and didn't even realize we were making losses because we are not in the business of technology. And so I believe, especially the way today, where you have so many experts doing technology, you can easily buy the technology, you can collaborate, you can white label. Why would you try to create something which you don't have the expertise in, or you get distracted focusing on? And then what happens is you realize that if you are focusing on a technology company, we forgot that there is a technology within the bank which is now getting older and older and becoming more and more hard to retain. So the bread and butter is banking. So I wouldn't have said this if I didn't have the experience, but I've seen this time and again when bankers try to do things which is not their core competence. Okay, you are going to have a big mess.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Mr. Menon, for that and for this lovely fireside chat. I had a wonderful time, and
Right. Thank you.
I'm not even a banking technology leader, so I can only assure you that the rest of our attendees had a wonderful time as well.
Either you have a background or you did your homework well, but very good questions. I really appreciated those.
Thank you so much, Mr. Menon. I really appreciate it. And we have a couple of questions, other questions as well. Well, unfortunately, they've tried to be anonymous. So we're going to send those questions across to you. One is more like a statement where the person mentions that cross-functional teams would be a solution for such cases. And however, this would need a huge cultural change. I think cultural change is the primary topic that any discussion around technology organization starts with. So I think we all completely agree with that. And I would like to speak on your behalf for that as well. So I think we all definitely agree that cultural change is the premise or the starting point of all of this. And it needs that. But having said that, thank you so much. What we would also be doing we would be sending a transcript of your interview to our attendees later. Because as I mentioned, the takeaways are absolutely fantastic, which is completely relatable and something we feel the technology leaders can go back and implement it within their existing strategy as well. So I really thank you so much on behalf of us and Nutanix as well.
Thank you. Thank you. Pleasure being here. And as I said, for me, it was an invigorating talk and I really enjoyed it. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Menon. Pleasure.